Classic keyboard action, Evan.
I see it, and I appreciate it. You know, I'm such a fan. Hey, man.
Yeah, dude.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm trying to get centered here. Not
What's up,
emotional
Wendy?
in the screen. Hi, Wendy.
Hey,
Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Hey, Kelly.
I'm No C.
I know. Hi, Raj.
Have you met Raj before?
No.
You guys go way back? Oh, no. Okay.
No, we have not.
What's that Ted Lasso thing? Congratulations. You guys both just met an awesome person.
Mike.
Dude,
Hi,
Okay.
Cheryl.
Who are we waiting for? What slackers are we waiting for?
Uh,
Did you do that, Raj, or did I do that? Is that the...
I did that, but I did this. There you go. Right, it's the thing.
This is a party. This is a celebration.
Right.
All right, we'll wait. We'll wait a couple of minutes.
I think it's
for
this.
those
another light.
bunny ears.
I don't
What
know why
happens
it's
if you
not
do two?
doing it.
Oh, this is like a Richard Nixon thing.
There you go. There it is. That is the Richard Nixon thing.
I
Oh
was
yeah,
hoping
why
if-
don't you get double.
I was hoping if I did this that it would
Dude,
do
look at
like
that! Look at that
fireworks or something.
action.
Whoa. Okay.
So
I'm
how do you
taking a look.
do that with the balloons?
You
Where
just do
is
your,
it?
you
Two
give a
fingers,
peace
your peace
sign.
sign.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Then you
watch.
just hold it there for a
If
second.
you have
see?
the updates on your computer.
It's on a Mac. If you're on a Mac, I think
Yeah,
it's
you have
Mac
to
or is
have
it
a
just
Mac.
Zoom? I think it's a Mac thing.
I'm on Mac.
And then
Okay.
watch this. You can do this too. You got a thumbs up.
What happens if I do the middle finger? Just kidding.
Well,
Well,
We're
it's
recording
not.
this, so
Does it only work if you have a Zoom account?
I don't know.
Because it's not working for me.
All right. Well, you can keep trying. You can just throughout the meeting, you just keep doing that.
I'll do that.
Everyone will think you're a very peaceful person.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. So we're waiting for William. Who else is supposed to be here?
I don't think Adam was going to be able to make it.
No. So we want to take Adam off all of the whatever emails we sent. He's officially out.
dude, he's gone. He's out of here. Just kidding. I've never met him. Is he a nice
Yeah,
guy?
his choice. I don't know. I've never really met him either.
And
Hey, Lex.
Hey,
Do you want to text Cheryl, do you want to text William? Just let him know that we're on.
hey, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get the
And that everybody's waiting for him.
Okay.
And speaking ill of him. This is good that you guys see this. So this is what happens if you're late. Then everybody's just talking about you. Why you're not there and what the problem is. Sounds like a classic case of denial. Oh, Shayna. Ah, hi Shayna. We were just talking about you. Not good things, I'm afraid. We were talking about the late people.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
You of course are a wonderful person. So we actually weren't talking about you.
This is actually a big group. I didn't know it was this many. I guess I didn't.
It wasn't supposed to be this big. It grew.
It grew.
There were certain people who I felt should just be included. So
Cool.
it was actually envisioned as a smaller group. Okay, we're gonna wait for William for another minute. Then we're gonna
Just for future planning purposes, is this meant to be about an hour? Is that
So
the
it said
thought?
this link is not working. I will try next time. I don't think so, bud. Don't think you will try next time. Hold on. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is it an hour? I don't. Yeah, maybe.
This is meant to be an hour. Okay, hold on.
I don't know. Is
This
it an
is
hour?
meant
Yeah,
to be
maybe.
an hour. Sometimes I talk too much, and so that would be the only thing that would make it last longer than an hour.
who was texting you? Evan, was it Bill?
He emailed me saying the link does not work.
Oh, okay. So you found him.
Okay. So in a couple minutes, like for instance, Lex is here at great personal cost to himself.
not exactly. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
So let's see. I'm trying to figure out how we can vamp while we see if William's going to show up or not. One of the things I'm going to talk about in my little intro warm up thing is how important it is to be here. But I don't want to. I want to save it. I want to save it. So I don't have
Well,
Bill's phone
can I
number.
just pipe in? But
Please.
because, so I am, I have 3 meditation classes left that meet
Okay.
tonight at 7:30, that's Central Time. So because I have to get dinner in between there with my kids who are going to I say kids, they're adults.
Yeah.
They're 30. But anyway, I probably have to pretty well stop at 6 just for the next
I
couple.
think that's totally fair. I think that's totally fair.
And
Okay,
then
but
after,
given that,
it doesn't matter.
I'm gonna just go straight into it. Okay, so the reason we're all here is we're talking about using the steps as a way of life, and in particular in this group, although it works for everything under the sun, we're focusing in this group on under earning. I find under earning to be, an insidious and horrible disease, that really, for me, attacked my self-esteem at such a core level and led me to believe that I was not worth very much. And that expressed itself not only in, a horrible self-image, but also financially as well. And so, when you have a problem that you cannot solve, and I'm assuming that's something that that is common among us here. Um, I do not think there's anything better in the universe than the steps to deal with that. So let me do this. So I guess I'll say it this way. In the 12 steps themselves, in step 12, it says having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. So that's the point of this. That's the point of these steps. Is the point of this group. The point of this group is to have a spiritual awakening, which is a reorientation of your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions to such a great degree that it changes how you manifest in the world. It changes everything about the way you think about money. Um, and that's the point of this. There's no other point of this. We're not getting together to hang out socially and stuff, although I enjoy all of you. And we will, I'm sure, have laughs and fun and great questions and all that. But the point of this, I just want to be super clear, is to teach you not just how to use the steps, how to heal from under earning. That's our primary focus, but to use these as a way of life. And that comes from, I have to find it here. From the forward to the 12 and 12. Do I have it marked already? Okay. AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which, if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink, in this case, and enable the sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. Now, so what you have here is you have in both the big book, the 12 steps, and the 12 and 12 of AA, 2 very strong promises, pretty much absolute guarantees. And my experience with this is if you do the things that we talk about in this group, if you actually do them, there is no way that they cannot work. That's my firm conviction. And I've been at this for 27 years, and I have never seen it fail when it has been applied. So the question is not, will this work? The question is more, will you work it? Will you do it? And what I think is great about the way I'm going to present this to you, because I did not author this, I think in some ways I've taken it deeper than perhaps was originally intended, but it was shown to me, and because I've been at the 12-step game quite a long time, I recognize the sort of brilliance of this approach. And so we are studying the 12 and 12. And the reason we're studying the 12 and 12 is because the 12 and 12 was written 15 and a half, 16 years after the original big book. And one of my sponsees in Debtors Anonymous, who I sponsored around under earning, became an audiobook narrator, and she narrated the history of AA. The original big book, they were trying to write it as a bestseller, right? So there was not all this generous profit, generosity of spirit that we've come to know the 12 steps as. That sort of came about, if you will, as a very spiritual led thing. It happened to become that way, but their intention was to make money with this action, right? And so when they wrote the second book, in my view, it was very much to sort of deal with what wasn't there. If you've tried to follow the steps out of the big book, it's not that clear. It just isn't what there is to do. It still absolutely works, no question about it. But what's so brilliant about the 12 and 12 is these are specific instructions. Now, unfortunately, almost nobody reads them that way. Nobody reads them as a how-to manual on how to work the steps, which is what we're going to do. And we're going to you're actually going to get the way we're going to do this. We're going to go through the 12 and 12, and we're going to go through it kind of line by line. And we're going to look for anything that we can turn into an instruction. And then you're going to take those instructions. We're going to write them all out as a whole sheet. You're going to have homework over the week to do. And you're going to come back next week with a full list of all the instructions in the book. And then we're going to take that list and we're going to call it down to your short list, the ones that are most meaningful. And there'll be some that we put on there that are kind of required because they're so intrinsic to the whole thing. But for the most part, it's how you understand it. And because as long as you're working what you understand to the best of your ability, then it's going to work. Okay. So let's see. So in sort of other news, and just to sort of talk about myself in this process for a while, for a moment, the reason I'm doing this is because there are sponsors are a little bit harder to come by in DA. It's not like AA where, if you reach out your hand, there's a hand to greet you. In AA, almost for sure. In DA, it's not. Now, this is not actually a problem, right? Because my sincere belief is that when the teacher's ready, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? And that having been said, for me, the reason to do it is there's something in me that wants to sort of ring the bell of truth in hopes that it will resonate in others and it will open up the truth in themselves. Not that I can say the truth to you, but I can sort of speak my truth and hopefully that will register inside of you, right? I already have a full slate of sponsees, so I'm not looking to take on more. And because I'm also looking to stay married. My wife is, said no more sponsees, and I'm like, okay. But if I do it in this way, the way that I'm approaching this is I can put in 1 hour a week, right? Now, that's not the normal way that I do this, but it will absolutely work. Now, so what that means in practical terms is you might have questions in between. So what I encourage you guys is to talk to each other in case one of you has more understandings. But if you have a question that will not wait, it will keep. And then also too, the very real truth is, especially when you're in this process, when you're really open to learning these things, there is a higher power guiding you through this. And that's the whole point of this. And so you are not going to perish between sessions, right? The key is for you just to be sort of diligent about doing the work. And it does not take a lot of work. We're not talking about a ton of work. What like the specific work that this really takes is once we make our list and we have our little short list on your phone, is that you look at it as you go through your day. Now, this is not a big ask, right? It does completely change the way you look at life, absolutely, but it's not 6 hours of homework or something like that. You see what I'm saying? It's like it basically, it's like, okay, you're looking at your list and you're coming up against a problem. You say, okay, well, how do I surrender? How do I admit complete defeat? That's the work. But you can do it. It's not a time thing. It's will I remember to do it or will I stay unconscious kind of issue, more so than this huge time commitment that's going to blow you away. So the last thing I'll say is what I would recommend, and hopefully this doesn't sound extremist or like I'm full of myself, is that you absolutely rearrange your schedule to make sure that you are here. Like, this is that important. This will absolutely change your life if you show up for it. So make sure you show up for it. Right. And again, the number of times that I've worked the steps and the miracles that I've had in my life, we do not have time to talk about. Right. It absolutely is incredible. And it will absolutely change your life. You know, and it's this process. And what's great about the way that we're doing this here is we're going down to the most fundamental level we can work the steps. We're not talking about it just on the surface of under earning. And for some of you who've been to my workshops, you'll know a little bit already about what that means. But if you haven't been, that's fine. Okay. And so the other thing that means is if there are administrative things to be done and you guys decide that certain things need to be accomplished, you guys will have to work together, figure out some way to sort of get that done. Not that I'm anticipating a lot. It'll really just depend on you guys. But somebody will have to step up or somebody will have to do something, you know, to sort of make sure the whole thing stays alive. Because it's not going to be me. I'm not gonna be like chasing people around and sending emails and stuff and all of that. It's like I'm gonna show up here and we're gonna do the job, and the rest is kind of up to you guys. Okay. Okay, so like I'm saying, use each other as a resource. Let me see if there are other notes that I need to say. I think I said all the stuff that I want to say, so we can jump into it. Are there any questions before we start to go straight into the actual doing of the thing? Okay, great. So you want to open up your 12 and 12, whether you have that digitally or whether you have it as a hardback or softback book, an actual book. Does it really matter? Okay, so this will seem complicated maybe just at first, but after a while, it will not seem complicated because it's not very complicated. There's a little bit of a of an interpretation part in here that's a hair tricky, but it's not really super critical. So you don't have to worry too much. Because we're all going to get back together and we're all going to compare notes in a week, right? And look over the work that we've done. So it really doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong, which I just want you to know is also a fundamental principle of the universe, right? It's like you can't really do it wrong, not in your higher power's eyes. It's like it's all okay. The fact that you show up and do the best you can is more than enough. Okay. So we open up, we start with step one, and we start to read this. And it says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, right there in the beginning. So right there, we can already take that and we can turn that into an instruction. So whether it's a paper book or whether it's a Kindle, doesn't really matter. You can highlight that. And what I do in my Kindle is I can highlight it and I can make a note. So the first thing we want to do is when we find something that's an instruction is we want to turn it into a personal instruction for us. So it says, we admitted we were. So notice it's all we and it's all in the past tense. We want to turn that into a present tense actionable thing. That's one of the reasons when we read this, I mean, I don't know how many of you have been in 12-step study. I've, read this book, I don't know how many times and just like, oh, this is all very interesting, but never did I look at it like, oh, I'm actually supposed to do this. This is what they did. That's great. Good for them. So we change that to, I admit I am powerless over X. And how I would put X, right? Because the number of things that we are powerless over in this life is quite incredible. If you want to put under earning in this case, that's fine. But I just want you to be well aware that, and I'm going to talk about this because we're going to go through, once you get the nature of this, I'm going to talk a little bit about step one and how this applies to under earning. So that would be the first one, right? And then the next one, our lives have become unmanageable. Next line is, who cares to admit complete defeat? So you would take that and you would change that to, I admit complete defeat. Now, I don't know if you can see this already, but already we have two instructions. Admit I'm powerless over whatever it is that I'm struggling with. I'm powerless over under earning. And admit complete defeat. Now let's take a notion like admit complete defeat. Is that actionable? Is that something that you could actually do in any given situation? It's a question for the group. What do you think? Is it, can you actually admit complete defeat given a problem that you're facing?
Yes, I think you
Yes, Wendy.
can. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, Alexis, yes. Wendy, what do you say?
I mean, I think yes. It's but then there's the question of balance and, am I copping out? Which I could do also. So I could admit
Right,
complete defeat when there's still something left that I actually could do to
Huh.
help the situation.
right.
Just saying.
But
That's what
you can do it. In other words, it's not this cerebral concept. It's not this thing, it's something that's actually doable, and it's something you can apply yourself to. And so it's something you can be in the process of as well. Have I admitted complete defeat around this? Now, the things that you bring up are good and um and to me quite funny. I don't mean that in a bad way. Uh because there's so many things that we think that we should be doing, especially around things that we're actually powerless over. Like I said, we're powerless over so many things. And hopefully, in the course of us talking about this, we'll see just how many things we're powerless over. And I'll get to that when I'll do a little talk before the end of our time here, right? Okay, so now so we'll keep going here for a little bit, but the difficulty kind of this next paragraph, it kind of shows where it can be a touch challenging, because this next one is kind of long. It is truly awful to admit that, glass in hand, we have warped our minds into such an obsession for destructive drinking that only an act of providence can remove it from us. It's like, oy vey. How do you translate that into a simple idea and an action? And the reality is, um, so what this would be is turned into something like, I admit that I have warped my mind into such an obsession for destructive drinking or thinking, depending, right? Uh, so that's a trickier one, but it turns out not to be that important, right? It turns out not to, like, this is a sort of more complicated idea, but what you're going to discover in the reading of step one here is that Bill is saying one thing over and over again 40 times. He says it in different ways because before he did this, he took a writing class. Before he wrote the big book, he took a writing class, and they said, don't say it same way too many times, it gets boring. Which is good for in terms of reading, but it also makes it a little bit tough because it seems like he's saying different things. But you'll see over the course of this, he's not saying, he's saying kind of one thing again and again and again. Okay. Okay. The next one, and you're going to go through this, but I just want to give you a fair sampling so you kind of know what to do. If I keep reading and I say no other kind of bankruptcy is like this one. Alcohol, now become the rapacious creditor, bleeds it of all self-sufficiency and all will to resist his demands. There's no action in that. Once this stark fact is accepted, our bankruptcy as human concerns, as going human concerns, is complete. Accept this stark fact. That would be the action. So that's what you would write down on this long list. So at the end of this list, you might have 40 things, whatever you go in here and discover as you go through this. It's important that you go through it and that you look for it and you find, and then we'll go through it together in a group just to make sure it's thorough, right? Because we just want to all come up with a similar set of instructions. So we'll do one more and then we'll move on, because this next one is kind of one of my favorites. And this one will end up on everybody's short list if I have my way about it. We soon take quite another view of this absolute humiliation. That one is just comedy gold. I mean, it's not comedy gold, it's just gold, right? We soon take quite another view of this absolute humiliation. So we're going to have fun as we start to explore, how do you put that into action? How do you, so what we're talking about here, let's go back to our original premise. To practice these steps as a way of life. So I practice taking another view of this absolute humiliation. Now, when he says absolute humiliation, remember he's saying the same thing again and again and again. What's he saying here? What does this sentence mean? Anyone?
We're powerless.
Yeah, right. But even more, we take another view. This is the important part of this. We take another view. We start to change our opinion about absolute humiliation or our total powerlessness. Right. And for those of you who have been around long enough or gone through another program, you kind of have experienced this already. There are people who go through AA and say, thank God I had a drinking problem because it brought me to this. Right. That's taking another view of my absolute humiliation. I see, and for our practices and our purposes, I see the value in hitting bottom. I understand because, and the next sentence clarifies this, okay? We perceive, and this is its own action, right? So we soon take quite another view of this absolute humiliation. And again, we'll talk about this one a lot because it's one of my favorites. And it's also, again, because I'm living these steps as a way of life, it's also how I live. So when a problem shows up, I say, well, good, this problem is here and this reaction is here. This is my next spiritual awakening. Some of you guys know that I quote myself sometimes, and my favorite quote of mine is, your next spiritual awakening starts as a problem, maybe even an explosion. That's what this sentence means. You think it's a problem. It is not a problem. It is your next spiritual awakening in disguise. But when we treat it as a problem, it becomes much more difficult to deal with. When we treat it as our next spiritual awakening, that's taking another view. See, we're already
I
getting
just
into
got to
this.
say that I just got to tell you that's badass, dude. I love
It
that.
is. It is. I wish it was my idea. Okay. We perceive that only through utter defeat are we able to take our first steps toward liberation and strength. So this sentence now, separate command, but it absolutely backs up what that other one says and clarifies it. What it's saying here, and this is really important to our study of this and our understanding of this, it's saying that only when we're really defeated, and let's change that just a touch to say only when the ego is really defeated can we really change. Can we really start to become free? That is an incredibly powerful concept. And it's the concept that all of this stuff is based on. Later in this chapter, it says, this is the main taproot of the society. Everything we do is based on our ability to surrender. Because where there is a fight, ego is present. That's all there is to it. And so what we're doing is we're in the ego. We talk about the steps as ego reduction, right? But what we're really doing is we're exposing this fragile, tender, broken ego to this force in the universe, and this force in the universe is changing it. And we are changed as a result. Our problem really is that we're addicted to our ego and what our mind is telling us. It tells us all sorts of terrible things. And for some reason, we believe it all. If somebody walked up to you and said the things in your head that you say to yourself out loud, you would slap them, you would never speak to them again, you would not have them in your life. But because it's coming from your head, for some reason, you accept it and believe it. This is our problem. And especially when we take the steps and we use it to deal with that problem, which underlies the under-earning, now we're really getting somewhere. And that's why this is so important and this is so foundational. Okay. So does everybody have a sense enough of what we're doing here in the 12 and 12? You're going to go through the entire chapter all the way to the end. You're going to read it. You're going to look for an instruction. In some cases, there's the way that my sponsor originally had me do it was sort of as do's and don'ts, which, you know, there's things in here where it says, don't do this and don't do that. So if you want to do it that way, that's fine. I don't really care. Right. Mainly what I'm concerned about is what are we supposed to be doing? It's like in some of these cases, it's pretty good. And you can just do that as part of the instructions. It says, don't try to defeat alcohol in single-handed combat. Okay, that's a good action. Don't try to do that. The instruction is don't do that. Great. If you want to write it as a don't, that's fine by me. I don't really care. right? Because we're focused on what is absolutely important to dealing with this disease. That's all we care about, right? And getting it as close to what they mean here, that's kind of important. So we're going to work toward that. But people, you might say it a slightly different way, and if it's meaningful for you and it helps you get down to the truth, great. Okay. So that's the assignment. So you just, before next week, just do that. And as much as you want to, you're not required to yet, by any means, but as much as you can, look at that list and start to do it. In other words, as you have a problem, you know, start to look at, how can I admit defeat to this? And, Wendy, you bring up a good point. There's still stuff that I can do, and or I should be doing. One of the notions in this book and the other book is these spiritual solutions work for all our problems. So what I would submit to you is that even though there's stuff that you could be doing, giving up would be a more powerful approach. Anyway, it just goes so against our whole Western culture. This is not, understand that what we're talking about here, what we're doing here, this is like lying down in a ditch and saying the best way to solve my problem is I'm going to lie down in a ditch. Nobody is doing that. What everybody that what they're doing is they're doing everything they can to have a happy life, which is the absolute wrong way to do it. The reason is, let me see, how can I just backed myself into a corner here. Let me back the tractor up for a second and let me come at this and talk about why we're doing this the way that we're doing it. So one of the things that's pretty common knowledge in 12-step circles, and is mentioned in the big book, is that bottles are just a symbol, right? So what that means is, and it says in the big book, the problem centers in our mind, and our real problem is something along the lines of self. These are the things that it points out in the big book, right? So the real problem is not the alcohol. And I think the best way that I've heard it is, alcohol is our solution, right? But solution to what? What if alcohol is just a symbol? What's the real problem? And you could say it a number of ways, but the quickest way for me to say it is, the problem is pain. Each human being that I have met and encountered in this lifetime is in a great deal of pain. And they use things like alcohol, like under-earning, like gambling, like shopping, like food obsession, etc., to manage that pain, because they don't know how else to do it. And one of the ways that they avoid their pain is by spending their entire life trying to be happy. The problem is that desperate search for happiness comes from such pain that it's ultimately doomed to failure. So like in the context of money, the story of the billionaire is kind of my favorite, right? So you've got this guy, he's the fourth of five children, right? And he's not seen. He's not the youngest, so he's not paid attention to. And everybody else is older than him, and nobody pays attention to him, and so he's forgotten. And so he comes to believe, he's told, without words exactly, that he just doesn't matter, which is a very painful thing for a human being. Yes, I don't matter. Nobody cares about me. So the thing is, human beings just don't live that way. They just don't. They can't take that. It's not an acceptable thing. So what they do is they try to do something about it. So what this guy does, and he's more successful than most, is he develop a strategy. His strategy is, I'm going to go out, I'm going to earn $1 billion, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you that I matter. And so he does this. And so he spends the next 40 years collecting money, going out there, making himself rich. Now, there are lots of people, sycophants, hanging off of him, who want a piece of that money and who think he's great. And his ego may tell him that I've done it and I'm better than others. But he has not touched the real pain, the pain of I don't matter. Because there's no way in the world to heal that trauma. Money, just having money doesn't solve that. If it did, Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley and all these other people would still be alive, or they would have had happy lives, right? Money doesn't solve that kind of trauma. Money doesn't solve trauma. Now, if you have a lot of money, you can go and you can get the best therapist in the world, but you still have to sit in that damn seat and you still have to walk through all those feelings to get to the other side of nobody loves me. Nobody loves me does not go away, no matter how much money you have, no matter how much fame you have. Because if you did, then famous people would be sane. And as you can see, most of them are batshit crazy, right? Because that has been their solution. Their solution is not to become whole human beings, but to become famous, which doesn't solve their underlying pain, right? So what we're attempting to do here is we're coming down to what the real problem and the real issue is. Now, for under earning, it's a little more difficult to see how this is a numbing out process, how this is like alcohol, right? But the more you start to look at it, the more you start to see that what it does is it prevents you from living a full life, which may or may not feel safe. If you have a life that was shrunk down when you were a kid, then to have a big successful life is outside of the rules. And one of the things that I'm seeing as I'm working with under earners a lot these days is that they are incredibly loyal to the family system. So let's take my case. My dad was a literal genius. And the way that I grew up was somebody who had all this great potential, but who was not fulfilling it. So that's how I came into adulthood. That was my role in my family. And that's what I continued to create. And I felt like a loser. And that was my place in life. That's what was comfortable. And what I discovered as I started to break out of that and I started to go past that was that I would have to make my father wrong. I would have to subvert the family system. I would have to break the rules of the family system in order to be successful. And I remember the first time I was sitting at this $5,000 desk designing with all these other, six-figure designers, I felt like I did not belong there. I was terrified. Right? This was outside the family system. And the one thing about the human nervous system is that it is always trying to maintain equilibrium. It prefers the rut. That is safe. So, like an example for me, like when was I safe as a child? My dad loved it when I sat in my room and read and didn't make a noise. My dad, when I was happy or something successful, he did not celebrate that. He celebrated quietly in his own head when I was out of the way. So my understanding of me, that's where I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm invisible. Nobody knows I'm here. You see what I'm saying? So these are the things that we're really dealing with. And also, by staying in that small place, it keeps the pain submerged and intact. Right. So that's how under earning is an avoidance of very difficult, painful feelings. So, I mean, this is a step study, but I don't mind quoting the Course in Miracles. Hopefully, you guys won't call the police on me. But, Course in Miracles says, we're never upset for the reason we think we're upset. Now, that matches what it says in the big book. Bottles are only a symbol, right? They're the solution to our real problem. So, what we want to do is deal with our real problem. So, now what does that look like in practical terms? So, when it talks about we were powerless, what is it that you're really powerless over? I would say to start, well, let's see, before I say, tell me, what are you really powerless over? Why don't each of you just kind of blurt out what you feel like you're really powerless over?
Yeah, I feel like I'm powerless over um letting that pain run the show.
Right. And what is that pain?
It's as you were sharing, it's a feeling of unsafety in the world, a feel terror, um if I live this big life, like how do I handle it? You know? And then
Yeah.
again, like being seen, like you're saying.
Yeah. And like, as I'm touching into it right now, it's like, I am just not enough,
Mm,
right? I am not enough. I can't do it. I can't handle it. So it's whatever these feelings are, these intense feelings of fear, like you're talking about, unworthiness, and the thoughts that come with them. This is what we're really powerless over. And it manifests as under earning. Again, understand under earning is the symptom, it's your faux solution. I know how to solve all this and keep this all intact. I will keep it all shut down. I will not live this big life because that's too dangerous because I have to come up again. when I was really going, this is 18 years ago, when I was really breaking through this under earning thing. Here I was, I felt like a loser sitting at a $5,000 desk. These things did not go together. My nervous system could not capitulate. It could not hold these two concepts at the same time. And it literally was tearing me apart. Because on the one hand, there's this force saying, no, 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 no. This is not where you're supposed to be. You're a loser. And this other one saying, no, I have talents. I have skills. I have abilities. I want to express them in the world. Right. And you all have incredible talents and skills and abilities to express in the world. But you have this force that is pulling you in this different direction. And you are 100% powerless over it. It's an unseen, subconscious force that's like an ankle, like a weight around your ankle, holding you at the bottom of the sea. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's why we need the steps. And that's why we have to see how powerless we are over it. And we have to see the depth of that pain. And that's important because that's what we're really powerless over. And as we go through this, we'll explore that. We'll explore that because I have a very different way of approaching the second step but it's based very much in all of this reading, right? So we're going to look at it. And again, we're doing this at a more deep level. Because when you say I'm powerless over under earning, what are you really saying? What under earning it is anyway. It's like, I'm powerless over not earning enough. Well, it's like you could go rob a bank and earn a lot of money, right? But that's not really a solution to this problem. I mean, it is a solution to this problem. I mean, it's no longer under earning. Okay, so you guys know what the assignment is, and you have a basic idea of what we're doing here and how we're tackling this. And all this stuff is extremely powerful. It really is. And the key is as you start to do this, as you get your little short list, and we're taking it slow, it's like we're sort of warming you up to the idea. You're not required even to start to try to apply this to your life. All you need to do is go through and do the assignment. So I think we will try to keep this to a very sort of tight hour because there's just not that much to say. I'm sure when you guys come back next week, you'll have any questions. Do any of you have any questions now or any thoughts or observations you'd like to sort of share?
Yeah, just to clarify, Evan, we're
Please.
listing the first of all, it's awesome already, dude. I love it because I've done
It
this stuff
is.
for 15 years. I've never done them this way, dude. It's radical. It's cool.
Yeah.
So we're listing the actions like in the thing, and we're just making the list right now.
You're just
That's
making a list at the
all right,
end of
cool.
the end of the assignment. And so what's different about this than other ways is like most step work is done like a homework assignment. Like they say, go do this and come back and read it at the end of the week. Okay, good. Now let's move on to step 2. Yada yada. That's kind of how most step work is, right? This is not that. I know we're starting with an assignment this week, right? But really what this is we are talking about how do you apply this such that you can apply it to your life. And we're starting with under earning, but we are not stopping with under earning. We're going to apply this as much as we can. And so the way that I say it is, so when you talk about the 12 steps, most people look at it like a staircase. And I say it's more like a dance. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And you add the steps. So you can never get too good at step 1. This is not, we're going to do step 1. Now you've moved on. And now you're doing step 2. Absolutely not. It's, okay, let's do 1. Okay, now 1 and 2. Now it's 1, 2, 3. But it's always 1 because this is the main taproot of our society. You cannot get too good at surrendering. And you don't really want to take it back. You want to see your powerlessness. And through the course of this, I hope you'll see that you guys are powerless over almost everything. You really are. And the things that tell you aren't powerless are just your parts that are just these negative ideas in your mind that are just actually about guilt and putting pressure on yourself, right? And that you're not really meant to do that anyway. And as a matter of fact, you're powerless over that guilt. Right? It's just this negative force that's coming to sit on you in the form of a thought and a feeling. So the things that you're really powerless over most of all are, I list them as three things: your thoughts, your feelings, and the deep trauma underneath. That's what you're really powerless over. These are the things that are just taking a dump on your life and causing you to be in pain. Okay, any other questions?
Can you say those three things again? Your thoughts, your feelings, and what was the third thing?
The deep trauma underneath. Yeah, so kind of what, yes, go ahead, Kelly, please. I've
This is
talked
just
enough.
absolutely brilliant. Couldn't
It
have him at
is.
a perfect time. Like, it's crazy.
The timing is crazy.
Oh, it couldn't be any more sublime.
Good. I'm
Oh,
glad you feel that way. We're just
yeah.
getting started.
Thank you.
This is just the beginning. No miracles have even happened yet. Just wait. I mean, again, so let me say this another way. Like I say, this is guaranteed. So in other words, miracles are guaranteed. That's how strongly I feel about this. It's like I'm not shy, you know. I'm not shy about sort of guaranteeing this. It's like I've done it too long, right? It absolutely works. And what that means is you will have shifts in consciousness, and those shifts in consciousness will result in changes in your life. Period. End of sentence. End of report.
Can I say something? What's
Please.
kind of ironic about, I don't know if ironic's the right word, but what's kind of funny about it is that you're talking about letting go and that trying to make it happen never happens, right? Never works. And yet in a way, I think, at least speaking for me, I would think we're probably all here to try to change something that we can't change. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, but we're all caught in the trap of the ego. And the ego is, this is a very important concept to understand, which I thought I might talk about next week, but I can, we have a minute or two, we can talk about it here. The ego, and you all have been living this, the ego looks like it is constantly trying to solve your problem. You have this problem of under earning, and it looks like it really is dead set against it, and it's working its way toward you've been trying to get out of it all this time. And the whole thing is BS. The ego is not really trying to change. It's trying to look like it's trying to change. But if it was really trying to change, why would you be back in the same place all the time? The ego is part of the human nervous system. The human nervous system does not care about your happiness. It cares about your survival. It would prefer that you be safe and survive and be unhappy than you be happy and unsafe. So we do not want to live according to the reptilian brain. That is a very outdated script. But that is the world that we're living in. The human being has adapted and said, okay, I don't need to be able to kill brontosauruses to survive. But what I need to do is I need to make sure everybody likes me, and I need to fit in, and I need to do this. So the ego loves to try to sort out a problem and obsess about a problem and think about a problem and work on a problem. And so many times what I have to work with people on is the best way to solve that problem is for you not to work on it. I think in my workshops I said I came up with, I reduced the entire 12 steps down to one sentence, and it goes something like this. When I take my hooks out of a problem, the universe immediately begins to solve it. So that's good, but saying it backwards is actually even better. If I don't take my hooks out of a problem, the universe cannot solve it. That's what we're up against here. Our hooks. That's the problem. This. Notice how you feel about under earning. Does it look anything like this? I hate it. I don't want it. It's so terrible. That's what we're trying to recover from. This is not a solution to anything. This looks like the Wicked Witch, you know what I mean? And like, like Wizard of Oz. My pretties, you know what I mean? It's like, this is not a solution to anything. But even just when I do this, look how you feel. And then when I do this, just notice how that affects your nervous system, right? This is that surrender. This is the tightness that you're in. You're stuck in this position around every problem that you have. And there is no solution for you. Well, I'm not going to say there's no solution, but what I'm saying is if you bring consciousness to this, that loving presence can do this. And the problem and all that stuff can pass through you. Another way to say it is the reason the problem's not going away is because you want the problem. You're addicted to the problem. And all of this stuff is what we're trying to uncover and what we're trying to see. We're trying to see, because that's the reason it's not changing is because we're not getting down to the real problem. Have you ever noticed that like, let's say you have a splinter and you can't get at it, it's irritated. And then you finally get the splinter. What happens? It's like it was never there. Right? This is what we're dealing with. The reason it's not going away, the reason it's not changing, is because you're not really dealing with the real problem. That's our goal here, to get to the real problem and to bring all the light and love of the universe directly to the problem. The problem is not, I don't run around crazy enough and do this and do that. That's not your problem. Now, again, DA, I love. DA is a great thing. And it's so important when people are stuck not taking actions, right? To get into action. But I know a bunch of people who become DA action robots and they end up making a lot of money, but they're stuck on this hamster wheel. I was one of them. So it's a very real thing. So it's like taking actions and getting jobs and all that is not recovery. It's really only a part of recovery. But there's plenty of people in DA, who'll create a vision board and they'll just go after stuff. Chasing stuff is not, and getting it is not recovery, because it doesn't create that emotional freedom. But that emotional freedom will create jobs and situations, because I was working with somebody yesterday and basically, we talked about money as this is what you feel you deserve. This is what you feel you're worth. And so we want to change that. We want to change what you feel you're worth. Because I made a lot of money for a long time and I was, my nervous system is not a place you want it to be. And I did the steps. It's like you can be in DA and not work the steps at all. You can be in tools game and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So we want to be focused on having the spiritual awakening, because that's what the steps are all about. You want to have a spiritual awakening around money and especially around earning, such that your life is different. Okay, any final questions? And look, we're going to end on time and such. It's cool. Everybody's clear about the assignment. Everybody's clear what they need to have ready for next week. And it's not it's going to take you an hour at most between now and next week. So it's not a big ask. Yes, Kelly. No, you may not be excused from the homework. What was the question?
I still don't get it.
Which part? The homework?
Yeah, I wrote everything down. I just don't get it.
Okay. So let me just carry on here with it. So you were following along with me in step 1, right? In the 12 and 12?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would go to the next paragraph, right? So, so I pick up right where I left off. Our admissions of personal powerlessness finally turn out to be a firm bedrock upon which happy and purposeful lives may be built, right? So I'm just reading that. There's not an instruction in that one. That's actually a really good sentence. So you might mark it in a different way just to remember it and go, okay, that's really cool. This is how I'm going to build a happy and purposeful life. So I keep reading. We know that little good can come to any alcoholic who joins AA unless he has first accept his devastating weakness and all its consequences. Okay, so that can be turned into an instruction. Can you see that?
Mm.
So now I would highlight that. And then I would take that and I would turn that into an action for me. And the way that I have that written down is, now you can do this a couple different ways. I have accept my devastating weakness and all its consequences, or you can say I must accept my devastating weakness and all of its consequences, right? That's the action. So now you would write that down, and every single one you add another to the list. So you have a list of 25, 40, whatever it turns out to be.
Okay, got it.
And then next week, we're going to compare the list. We're going to see how everybody said the different things. We're going to say that's a better way to say it. Or we're going to say this is the way that I say it. Doesn't really matter. We're all going to end with a list. And then at the end of that time, the assignment for the next week will just be to take that list and make yourself a short list that you can easily put on your phone, that you can put on for a while, I had it as the wallpaper to my phone. And then the assignment will be to look at that list as many times as you can in a day and try to do that. So that would be accept my devastating weakness and all its consequences. It's like, okay, I walk around and I have a fear about money. Okay. And I go, oh my gosh, can I accept my devastating weakness and all its consequences? I can. I found that I could action this list, that I could do it, and that I could practice it, right? So we're practicing these concepts. And like anything else, as you practice them, you get better. Like I am getting much, much better at surrender. And by no means still am I an expert, but I am getting better at surrendering these things. A feeling comes up and I say, okay, I'm not going to fight this feeling. I'm going to allow it to be. I have a feeling. I'm powerless over having a feeling. Can't really do anything to change it, but I can accept it. I can allow it. I can breathe into it. And I can also look and be like, what's this feeling about? Oh, I'm feeling scared that I'm not going to do it right. Okay. Right. That's a different way of dealing with that than getting on the phone, calling my friend. It's like, I'm feeling really afraid about this. What should I do? That's the question of the ego. What should I do? I call it the addict question. I had this one sponsee and we would do all this work and we'd get down to this truth. And it's like, the truth is like, oh my God, do you see how much self-hatred that you have? And she's like, oh my God, yes, I totally see it. She goes, well, what do I do about it? And I go, that right there, that's the addict question. We've just spent all of our time getting down to this truth. And the key is to sort of rest in that and to see it and allow it and take it in. But the first thing the ego wants to do is, great, how do I get out of this? That's what we're really powerless over. Right? Okay. Ooh, let's do something I've never done before. Let's end on time. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Evan.
So
Awesome.
we'll do this a
you,
week from now
Evan.
at the same time, and you guys you can always feel free to drop me a text or something if you want. So, but if you have questions during the week, I will not be answering them. But you guys can get each other's numbers, and you can connect with each other, and then you can share your ideas, and then next week we can get together, and then maybe I'll answer the question, and we can see who was right and who won the pool. All right,
Sweet,
cheers, you guys.
dude.
Have a great one.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Bye.
See you,
Bye,
everybody.
y'all.
Bye.